I immediately took the little girl on my lap and started to run towards the door. Brute took out a huge knife and chased me.
Yeah! If you guys want to watch the original video, the link's in the description down below. It is by IMR Scary Tales. Make sure to go check them out. Your boy BlastphamousHD. Let's do this.
This happened when I first moved out. I rented a small place and started working as a pizza delivery guy. It was a local shop. The work pressure was moderate throughout the weekdays, but during weekends, we hardly had time to relax.
This is not that scary.
I generally did day shifts, but due to the bulk of orders, I had to do night shifts on weekends too. I was quite happy to do night shifts, being honest. It gave me a lot of time to relax during the day, and also, people got paid good tips on night orders on weekends. Our boss provided us 3 bikes and 1 car to go for the deliveries.
Give somebody a bike
the car
to do
was
a
especially
delivery,
for night
man.
shifts
That's
because
up,
driving through the empty highways amidst the woods at night is quite unsafe on a 2-wheeler. It was a Saturday night. I got 3 deliveries back to back. The first 2 deliveries were close, but the last one was on the outskirts of the town.
It's just not a good look.
After 5 minutes of drive in the town, I drove onto a dusty road.
Only 5 minutes?
The GPS tracker showed me the way. I was driving amidst the dense forest. My car headlights were the only light around me. I could hear the owls hooting and the crickets chirping in the distance. After continuing like this for a while, my GPS tracker showed me a turn on my left. As I reached near the turn, I noticed a dark road going that way. Without GPS, I would have surely missed this turn.
Yeah, you'd have been late as
hell. It was 11 p.m. when I finally reached the location. A sketchy-looking wooden house stood in front of me. I got out of my car, holding the pizza box in one hand and my phone in the other. The house was in complete darkness. I walked to the main door and rang the doorbell. The porch light lit up above my head. I felt a bit relieved that someone is inside. I was standing there, waiting for the door to open, just when a woman spoke from the inside. "Who is it?" I said in an awkward tone. Ma'am, it's me, the pizza delivery guy." A few moments went in silence. The door half opened. A terrified-looking partial face peeked from the darkness.
Oh, damn,
it was a woman.
bitch.
I could only see her
God
one
damn,
wide
she
eye.
ashy?
She then said, "Oh, it's really you." I smiled
Of course it's
awkwardly
me,
and
bitch.
said,
What else would it be?
"Yes, ma'am. Here's your order." She opened the door and took the pizza box from my hand.
What, no breadsticks?
I have been to many houses and have seen lots of creepy owners, but this
Damn,
woman
bitch.
was literally making my skin crawl.
Oh.
She then said, "I will have to go upstairs and bring the money. Till then, if you want, you can wait inside." She then started to walk upstairs. It was a bit chilly outside, so I entered the living room and decided to wait there. The living room was very untidy. Dirty clothes were lying in a corner. I don't know why, but a rancid smell was floating all over the room.
Ugh.
Another thing that caught my eye was the woman's wedding photos.
She ain't even wash her
Even
ass.
though the house was super messy and unclean, the photographs were in good shape, as if someone cleaned them recently. There were 4 to 5 photos in the living room. The one big photo of her wedding hung on the wall right in front of me. It was a really big frame. The woman was standing beside a lean, pale-looking man. She was smiling really big, as in ear to ear. To some extent, the photo felt very unusual. Especially, that man's face didn't seem at all happy to me.
Nah.
Anyways, prying in our customer's
she
life
crazy.
is a strict no-no for us.
He done
So I
married
stopped thinking all
himself
this
a
shit.
crazy chick.
I was becoming
that's what
impatient as
happens,
this
man.
woman was taking really long. This was the last delivery of the
for
night,
your
so
life.
I wanted to get the payment and the fuck out of here as soon as possible. I said in
You
a
got
loud
that money
voice,
up front, man. You shouldn't have went to this house.
Where are you?
Why would
It's
you go
getting
into
late
this
now.
house?
Can you please hurry up? I have a long drive home. The woman didn't respond, but after a few seconds more, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs.
Hell no.
As I looked up, I saw the woman coming down with that ear-to-ear smile on her face like that
hell
photograph.
No. Bro, this bitch smile
I
like
didn't
the
notice
Joker.
all this time that she was actually wearing her wedding dress. The dress is completely torn out and dusty.
Word?
It was in such a bad shape that no one can spot it without seeing her wedding photos.
Damn.
She looked at me and said, "My wedding dress?" Now, I got hella awkward and replied, "Ma'am, please make the payment so I can leave.
Yo, give me
It's
that
getting
money.
very late now."
Don't play these games with me.
She raised her skinny pale hand towards me and said,
She had money?
"Take it." As I reached to take the money from her hand, she dropped the cash
She
on
put
the
it
floor.
right into her vagina.
I thought it was an honest mistake, so I got down
We
to
gonna
pick it
edit
up
that
from the
out.
floor. While I was picking up the money, my eyes went to the couch, kept in the middle of the living room. My blood froze then and there.
Oh, hell no.
I didn't know what to say because I saw a dead body lying under the couch.
Nigga.
The dead body had started to rot, which clarified the rancid smell all over the house.
Fuck?
I could identify the body in a wink. This is the mistress of the house. She opened the door and a few seconds ago let me in. But
What the
if
fuck?
she is dead, then who is standing in front of me right now?
No!
I slowly looked up and saw the woman standing and leaning on my face. Her eyes were gushing out. Her smile made me feel like I've been drowned in the darkest darkness. She laughed and said in a demonic voice, "Don't I look beautiful in my wedding dress?" I screamed at the top of my lungs and ran for my life. After getting out of the house, I looked back once. Only once. The woman was still standing at the doorway. She was laughing like a creature from hell. Her laugh was echoing all around the woods.
Nope.
I started the car with trembling hands and drove as fast as possible. I went straight home that night. The next morning, I called my boss and told him this entire thing. He laughed at me at first and said I might have been hallucinating. But then I went to the cops and told them to check this house. Everyone was obviously mocking me at the beginning. When we all got into the house, they all got shocked and terrified, just like me. The cops discovered the woman's dead body underneath the couch.
Oh, hell
She was lying
no.
there dead for at least 2 to 3 days.
Oh, hell no.
I told the cop that she was the one who opened the door, and I didn't at all hallucinate the
hell
entire
no.
incident. But the horror didn't just stop there.
Yeah, right, buddy.
After
You was on them
searching the
drugs,
entire
buddy.
house, the cops found another dead body. They
Is that nigga
found
in
a
the
dried
thong?
corpse tied up to a chair in the basement.
Why is he in the
It was a
thong?
man's corpse. Someone starved him to death. The cops investigated the entire matter, and the story unfolded, scaring the hell out of all of us. The man and the woman were living in the house. The woman was very suspicious in her married life. She drove her husband crazy whenever he used to go outside.
Damn.
One day, the husband got paranoid about his wife and decided to leave her. The wife somehow managed to drug him in his sleep and then tied him to a chair so that he could never leave her.
Oh, hell no.
But during this process,
Oh,
she tortured her
shit.
husband, which eventually led
This
to
bitch
his
looked
death.
like Michael Jackson.
The woman turned into a lunatic after her husband died, and she too
Nigga.
committed suicide. I have stopped working as a delivery guy at night. Even though it was the most horrifying incident of my life, I still find it really uncomfortable that the woman's spirit found me to make her story heard.
What the fuck? Nigga, run, bro. You don't see that? You don't feel that? Story number 2.
Before I begin this story, I want to warn everyone to stay away from dark web.
Nigga, you in the jail?
Last month, I had a small
That shit look like he
gathering
was
at
in
my
jail.
place. I invited a couple of my office colleagues, and we all drank and watched
Your
the
nigga's
football
name is
match.
Dora?
It was a men's night out, hence everyone got really drunk and
Men's
lost track
night?
of time.
That's
There were
gay.
3 of us, me and my 2 colleagues, Max and Andy.
Gay?
We work in the IT department of a multinational company. The night was going well, but suddenly, Max brought up the topic of dark web. He said in a serious tone, "Very few people have the actual guts to surf the dark web. If you lost your way there, you have no idea what horrible things will come up." In my college days, I also accessed dark web once or twice, but nothing horrible took place. I said in a mocking tone, "Well, I think people spread a lot of rumors about the dark web. It's not
word.
that dangerous at all." Andy said, I never want to step in that arena. One of my college seniors told me that a guy ordered drugs from the dark web once, but instead, someone sent him the dust of human bones, which he snorted. I said in a surprised voice, "What? What happened to him?" Andy replied while taking a sip from his beer bottle, "That guy barely got out alive. My senior told me he bled terribly from his nose." I laughed and said, "I think your senior lied, dude. I can show you dark web is not that scary at all." I got up and turned on my laptop.
The dark web actually is that scary. Please don't go.
Max and Andy sat beside me on the couch, and we started to surf the dark web using the Tor browser. I was drunk and got adamant. I still regret going to the dark web just to prove a stupid point that night. I was going through the hidden wiki of the dark web. There were a bunch of links to various sites.
DuckDuckGo search engine? That place with sex for the animals?
We found a site that helps you to hire a hitman and then a site where you can upload torture videos and earn money from the viewership.
Ooh.
The more I searched, the weirder everything started to become. Max said, "Dude, can't believe some people can be this creepy in real life." I was about to click a new page when Andy pulled my attention to a link.
Ooh, let's hire a
The link
hitman.
read, http://truefootages.onion.
What they mean colon? Is that a link for butt stuff? You gotta stay away from that shit, man. That shit's everywhere.
I said, "Let's check out this link." Max grabbed my hand and said, "I don't think we should click on random links, Matthew. Let's just get out of this and watch the game. Seems like you are not one of those people who have the guts to surf the dark web, huh?"
Duh, nigga.
I later realized how I insulted him, but I know I should have listened to Max that night. Without saying anything more, I clicked on the link. The
This is how
screen started to
everybody
load.
dies.
Andy and Max kept staring at the screen with big wide eyes. I thought it would be some kiddish jump scare or something similar to that, but as the page finished loading, a zip file started to download on my laptop. Andy said, "Hey, it can be some virus, you know. It can crash your machine." I replied saying, "I have a strongly built antivirus and the system would have blocked the download if it was a virus in the first place."
Nope.
Anyways,
fall for this.
after the file downloaded, I extracted it in my laptop and
Don't
it
you fall
came
for
across
this.
with 3 MP4 files in it. I finished my beer in one sip and said, "Are you ready to watch some dark web footages?" and smirked.
Are you ready to watch some snuff film footages? That's what he really meant to say, but he had to keep it PG because of YouTube nowadays.
Max and Andy were curious too, so they nodded. As I played the first footage, a small wooden house appeared on the screen. The house was located in the countryside. The person who took the footage started to walk towards the house. As he opened the door, we saw old furniture and damp clothes lying here and there. It was evident from the condition of the house that no one lives there. We could hear the heavy breathing of the person who had the camera in his hand, but it was hard to guess whether it's a man or a woman. The person stopped near the stairs, standing in the living room. I was obviously getting bored, but suddenly, Andy said in a whispering tone, "Did you hear that sound?" I asked, "What sound?" He said, "Listen carefully. I think someone's crying." I immediately increased the volume and realized Andy is right. There was actually the sound of a man sobbing. The man was crying like he's in terrible pain.
I thought it was a female. I was about to say she's beating her meat and using the tears as prison lube. We gonna edit that out.
The camera started to go upstairs. Now, our heartbeats got faster. As the person with the camera reached upstairs, the video ended. Without any hesitation, I played the second video. The second video started showing a corridor lying ahead of the camera. This time, the cry could be heard more clearly. The camera kept moving towards the corridor, and it came near the door. Max said, "I think there's someone inside the room." Andy shushed him, saying, "Watch it quietly."
You think?
Now, the person behind the camera went to open the doorknob, and we saw a pale-looking skinny hand with lots of rings on its fingers.
Oh,
The
shit,
red
it's
nail
James
polish on
Charles.
those fingers made the hand look even creepier. We
female
realized
Thanos.
it's a woman, probably in her late 40s, filming this video. As she
assy
twisted
as
the
shit.
doorknob and opened the door,
Oh,
a
no.
vicious sight took place.
What the fuck?
There was an old man tied up to a chair placed
Old
in
man?
the middle of the room.
With pink hair?
It was this man's who cry we heard on the first
Why?
footage. Seeing
Why are his tears purple? Is this James Charles?
the woman with the camera, the man started to cry even louder. The fearful look on his face made it all look so real.
Man up!
The man
Womanly
said in a
dressed
sobbing
female?
and gasping voice, "Please, Julia, let me go. Why are you doing this to me? Please,
Cause my rent is
don't
due.
hurt me.
You think this is
Let
a
me
game?
go, Julia." We heard the woman laughing in a very disturbing
life.
way. It was evident from her laughter that she was enjoying this man's pain.
Aw,
She placed the camera on a wooden stand or something like that.
she about to cut
Now,
off his balls.
the camera is still, and it is focusing on the man tied up to the
About to
wooden
cut
chair.
off your balls, nigga.
Andy said in a panicked voice, "Is this all real?" This time, I got really confused. I wasn't expecting something like this at all. The man kept sobbing, and there was no sign of that woman for a few moments. Suddenly, the woman jumped in front of the camera from the left corner.
Hold on now.
It almost gave us all a heart attack.
You think?
She started to laugh, looking at the camera like a maniac. Her eyes were
What the
big
fuck?
and she had a pale face. The way she stared at the camera, it gave us all goosebumps. Max even said, I feel like she can see me. What the hell is this all? The woman slowly moved her head and looked at the man. Then, she again looked back at the camera and gestured her finger in her lips.
Yo, this is the worst snuff film I've ever seen, bro. The chick is crying before the sex even starts, bro. Terrible sign of an awful snuff film.
Andy said, this woman is freaking insane. Is she telling us to keep quiet? What kind of bizarre video is this? I was speechless with everything that was happening in front of my eyes. The woman picked up something from the ground. We couldn't see what it was, but as soon as she started to walk towards the man's behavior changed in a second. The man started to panic like a fish out of water. He said, no, Julia, no, you can't do this to me. I am your husband. Julia, please, don't do this. The woman reached behind his back and lifted her hand. She was holding a chainsaw in her hand. Her evil smile made my heart drop to my stomach. She again looked at the camera and shifted like before. The man was crying and sobbing, and the video ended there. The three of us sat silently on the couch, looking at the laptop screen flashing the third video file on it. I was literally shivering. Max was breathing heavily. Andy said in a trembling voice,
snuff films go hard in the paint.
The last video?
I've almost nutted.
Max got up and said, damn you, Matthew, I told you to stop. I hit my face with my palm.
Nigga beating his meat?
My forehead was covered with sweat.
Nigga.
Then I said, I don't know. Andy played the last video.
Oh, shit.
What we saw next shook us for our entire lives. The man was no more on that chair. The wall behind him was painted in blood.
They did him like they did Vang Rhames in Pulp Fiction. Horrible, terrible death by butt stuff, or snoo, as they call it in Mexico.
There was blood splattered all over the room.
Damn.
Our eyes were stuck on the screen.
They turned up on him.
Were beating like wild horses.
Were they?
When we saw that woman coming in front of the camera from the left side again.
Nigga!
Her head was down, looking at the floor.
Oh my God.
Her hair covered her partial face. I could tell she was holding something in her hand.
She ain't got no breath.
She then stopped and turned towards the camera. Her face was still looking down. She started to cry like a child.
What?
Her cry was making everything even more uncomfortable now.
No.
She cried, standing like that for a few more seconds.
He must have not made her nut.
Lifted her hand with the bloody head of her dead husband.
Damn.
Yes, she was holding.
Look at these dudes, they're still masturbating directly into the camera. Oh yeah, show us more. No, we gonna edit that out.
The severed head of that man in the chair.
Yep.
She started to laugh like a maniac while showing off his head towards the camera.
Yep.
Her eyes were glowing. She was looking like the devil from hell. Max gasped. Oh my God, did she really kill her husband with the chainsaw?
You think?
And immediately started to throw up on the floor. I was numb. I couldn't move, couldn't take my eyes away. The woman then got really close to the camera and gestured her bloody finger onto her lips and said in a whispering voice,
Oh my God.
Shh, keep quiet. The video.
Is that poop on her finger? What the fuck? What type of shit?
All of us remained awake the entire night. Andy got really sick. We admitted him to the hospital as he had a nervous breakdown after watching the video. We took the footage to the cops and told them everything. The cops are still investigating and looking for a woman named Julia who cut her husband's head off with a chainsaw and posted the entire incident on the dark web. If anyone comes across this woman, please let the cops know about it. I have no doubt that she is a mentally unstable woman roaming free with murderous intentions hidden inside.
Sounds like somebody I've dated previously. She's kind of cute. If her teeth wasn't
I work as a staff member in a city hospital morgue. It has been 5 years now, but I still get horrible nightmares of one particular incident.
Horrible.
The morgue is in the basement of the building. I am a male in my late 20s. I was well aware of the mental impact caused by such kind of jobs. Residing 12 hours in a morgue is not very entertaining, that's for sure. At the beginning of my tenure, I was often assigned to day shifts. After working there for 2 years without any trouble, one day my supervisor called me for an emergency meeting. My supervisor told me that the guy who used to work the night shifts, has recently left the job, so they need someone to cover for him until a new recruitment arrives. I accepted the shift to impress my higher authorities, and they handed me over a new schedule. I got assigned for the night shift.
They're probably paying this nigga 5 Nights at Freddy's type of money, $4 an hour if you're lucky.
From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for a week.
Yep.
The first 3 days went like usual, but I must say at night, it felt really spooky. To pass the time, I often took rounds of the morgue. Sometimes, I used to visit the emergency ward, which was right above the morgue. One night, I was sitting in my cabin and drafting the reports, just when a colleague of mine called me to the emergency ward. After reaching there, I came to know that a patient in cabin number 3 has just passed away. The man met with a horrible accident. I saw 2 to 3 doctors coming out of cabin 3. Their white jackets were
why her
drenched in
titties
blood.
look like that?
I got instructions to take the dead body into the morgue, and post-mortem will take place the next morning. I have seen enough dead bodies already.
Titties lopsided as
As I
shit.
stepped inside the cabin, my heart stopped. With wide, shaken eyes, I
your
saw a
titties small
completely
too?
mutilated corpse lying on the bed.
Ooh, that's hot.
There was blood all over the bed.
What the
Flesh
fuck?
was gushing out from the cuts on his
What the
legs and
fuck?
hands. But
Nigga.
that wasn't the scariest part.
That is,
As I
my
noticed
God.
the man's face, a chill went down my spine. His head was faced towards me, with a wide open
that?
mouth. The man was staring at me.
Did he die sucking dick for money? Why is his mouth open so wide?
His eyes were cold and dead still. For a moment, I felt the man blinked at me. Just then, my colleague patted me on my back, and I came back to my senses. My colleague said, "Come on, John, what are you waiting for?" I didn't say anything and started my work. I lifted the corpse onto a stretcher and headed towards the morgue. I got onto the lift. For the first time in my life, I was feeling uncomfortable inside an empty lift with a dead body. After reaching the morgue, I unzipped the back cover, and once again, that vicious face came out.
Hell no.
I put the body inside the vault
Oh
and
my
came
God.
back to my cabin. I sat down and started to write the
Hell
reports
no.
again.
Nope.
There was absolute silence in the basement area.
Hell no.
Generally, that's how things often are at night in the morgue section.
Wouldn't
But
do
the
this.
silence of that night made my skin crawl. Don't know how long I went with my work, but a sudden sound broke my concentration. I heard footsteps outside, as if someone is walking in the corridor. I got up and came out of my cabin. The room where the dead bodies are kept lies at the end of the corridor. I saw the doors were closed and the corridor was completely empty. I was walking towards the main room when suddenly
Nope.
I felt someone was walking behind me. I turned around, but there wasn't anyone.
Nigga.
I blamed my stupid head for imagining all this. The main room was perfectly fine. Everything was in its place. Only the door of vault number 3 was wide open. This is the vault where I kept the man's dead body a few hours back. With a sense of fear, I reached near the vault and pulled out the stretcher. The man's body was still lying on it, but this time,
His mouth was
his
closed.
wide mouth was closed.
What the fuck?
Not just that, a weird grin appeared on his face. It felt like he was looking at me with his dead eyes and smirking at me. I said to myself, fuck it, I am going home.
Yep.
I immediately pushed the stretcher back inside and decided to leave for home. I planned to call my supervisor and make up a story about feeling sick. I was almost near the exit of the main room when I heard a sound coming behind me. I turned around and saw the man crawling out of that vault like a creature from hell. His entire body was covered in blood. His eyes were even wider now, as if they will come out
Oh my
anytime.
God. No.
I couldn't move.
No.
I kept witnessing this horror
No.
in front of my eyes.
You better run.
The man came out and
No.
stood on the floor. Blood was dripping from his body. The
You ain't
entire
running yet?
floor beneath his feet turned red with
Run,
blood.
bitch.
I said in a panicked voice, You are supposed to be dead. But the man laughed in a very low, creepy voice and replied, You know what's the best part about being dead? You don't feel anything anymore. I couldn't believe that I was standing face to face with a living dead body. I was about to scream when the man rushed to my face. I can't explain how he did that, but it was like he swept his way like wind and stopped right at my face. His eyes were right in front of mine. I didn't know what to do then, but an idea came to my mind. I asked him, "What do you want? Please, let me help you."
It's not sex, is it?
The man.
It is sex. Oh, God. Do what you will. Just don't tell anybody on Instagram.
I looked up and said, "I was poisoned before getting into the car. Tell them to check the post-mortem. They must know the truth, or she will live free." I was about to ask him, who? But suddenly, the lift door opened, and I turned back. I saw my colleague upstairs coming towards the main room with a few doctors. He told me, "John, you still here? There's hardly any work here today.
What?
You could have left early today." I looked back at the vault, and everything seemed like nothing happened here a few moments back. There was no sign of blood or that man.
Nope.
Feeling messed up in my head, I started to walk to my cabin.
Nope.
But before getting inside, I told my colleague and those doctors. I don't know why, but I feel like there was some other reason behind this man's death. He didn't just die because of the accident. They all gave me a surprised look, but I got inside, took my bag, and left for home. The next morning, I got a phone call from a colleague. He told me, "Oh my God, John, how did you know? I mean, it anyway would have come out in the post-mortem report, but how come you were so sure?" At first, I failed to understand what he meant, so I asked, "What are you talking about?" My colleague replied, "That man, the dead body recovered from the road accident last night, traces of poison has been found in his stomach. Doctors are saying he was poisoned before he got into the car. This is now a criminal case. Cops are all over the hospital." I started to sweat like hell. That means it all actually happened. The man's ghost was there in front of my eyes. I sat down at the chair nearby. It took me time to deal with the fact that I have not only experienced a supernatural occurrence, but also talked to the haunting spirit of a dead man. The case continued for a while until the cops arrested his girlfriend for poisoning him before he left her house. I realized that by she, the man meant her. I didn't leave my job after this incident. The man visited me for one last time.
Word?
The day his girlfriend got sentenced for first-degree murder charges, I was working another night shift in the morgue. I just finished placing a corpse inside vault number 3. As I turned to go to my cabin, I saw that man standing in front of the lift.
Hell no.
This time, he had a big smile on his face. His body was disfigured like before, but his face was looking more fearful than before.
What the
His
fuck?
ear-to-ear smiles still haunts me at night.
Nigga.
I just stood there because I had no idea he will come to visit me again.
What's that supposed to mean?
But this time, he didn't say anything.
Word?
He just lifted up his head. The flesh was hanging from it, making his bone gush out of them.
What the fuck?
Then he waved me goodbye and disappeared into thin air.
Nigga. You Amber Heard ass girlfriend, man, that's fucked up. Tried to kill this nigga.
My girlfriend and I are passionate about road trips, but things wouldn't have taken a bad turn if our passion stayed within its limits. One rainy night, Stella and I were coming back from a road trip. The rain started to grow heavy. It was becoming difficult to drive amidst the rain and the thunderstorm, so we decided to stop at the side of the highway. I was worried that waiting on the highway during a thunderstorm is not a safe option. I was thinking what to do next when Stella said, "Look, Mark, there's a building on the left turn nearby." I followed her eyes and saw a building-type structure peeking behind the trees at some distance. Stella said, "Let's go there.
Hell
we might
no.
find some shelter for the night."
This bitch is tripping.
At that moment, it seemed like a good idea, so I took the left turn.
Bitch, that's an
As
abandoned
we stopped
hospital.
near the building, I realized it was an abandoned hospital.
You think?
We got out from the car and ran inside. The
Dumbasses.
big glass door of the entrance was already broken. As we entered the hospital, I realized no living creature has entered this place in a very long time.
Why'd you just sleep in your car?
There was broken furniture and shattered glass everywhere. Raindrops were piercing the damp ceiling and falling on the floor. The sound of water dripping on the floor combined with the rusty wind coming in from the broken window created a spooky ambiance all around us. Stella said in a low voice, "This looks like an adventure." My wife Stella is a horror fiction writer, hence spooky settings like these excite her. We went to explore many abandoned and old places for her creative exploration. I smiled and said, "Yeah, let's look around. Who knows, you might get a story out of this place."
No.
If I knew my joke would take a horrifying turn, I would have left that place right then and there. Stella and I started to explore the place. We turned on the flashlights of our phones. On our left stood a passage. There were many cabins in the passage. We walked in the passage and opened the door of the first cabin. There was a worn-out, dirty bed inside. Near the bed stood a table and a chair.
Bro, that's a sex
The
chamber.
odd thing that caught my eyes was belt straps attached to the handle of the bed.
Hell no.
I have never seen such unusual hospital beds. Most of the cabins were like this. Every bed inside those cabins had belt straps attached to it. Stella got bored after a while and said, "There's nothing here to see. Let's go upstairs." We took the stairway on the right side.
That bitch is dumb.
There were cobwebs and dirt all over the stairway.
Yo, female sucks.
The upstairs corridor was filled with broken glass and damp clothes lying here and there. As I flashed the light on the walls, I saw disturbing graffiti all over them.
Oh, hell
There were
no.
human skulls and demonic faces drawn on those walls. Someone even wrote, "Kill them all, kill," and stuff like that with red spray paint.
Oh no.
I felt weird seeing all that. I told Stella, "Hun, maybe we should wait in the car. The rain will stop in some time." Stella replied in a sarcastic tone, "Why? Are you scared, Mark?" I
Yes.
didn't say anything because I knew she will mock me more. We were walking in the hallway. The sound of the rain outside mixed with the whooshing wind created a hollowed echo in the corridor. At the end of the corridor stood a large door. On the door was written, "Operation Ward." Stella was looking at the graffiti on the wall. I told her, "What do you think used to happen here?" Stella smiled and said, "It's an
What the fuck?
operation theater, Mark.
Y'all see that crawling
Why
out?
are you behaving so off?" I said
Nobody
in an
sees this?
annoyed tone,
Nigga.
"Because this place is not some theme
Nigga.
park, Stella. The entire vibe of this place is off-putting. I don't know how can you not feel that?" Stella looked at me in the same careless manner and said, "Relax. This is just some abandoned hospital. We will look around a bit, then we'll leave. Stop making such a big deal out of it."
Yeah, show you
I
pussy,
thought
bitch.
to myself, maybe I am just behaving like a dumb kid. It's quite clear that there's no one else here except the two of us. We reached the door of the operation theater. Stella pushed the door, and with a terrible creaking sound, the door opened. I have never seen such a bizarre operation table. It was more like a stretcher, but there were leather handcuffs and belts strapped on it.
That's hot.
There was a headspace on the table, which too had a leather strap.
Yep, that's hot.
This time, I noticed Stella's face turning pale. She was checking all this stuff with a really freaked out face.
Yeah.
I went close to the operation table. There were surgical tools lying on it. The tools were quite different too. The surgical knives were more like saws. There was a drilling tool as well. I picked it up and said to Stella, "I wonder what is the use of this tool?" Stella looked around with her fearful eyes and said, "Oh my God, Mark, I don't think this is some ordinary hospital." I became surprised hearing that and said, "What? What do you mean?" Stella replied in the same fearful voice, "I think this used to be an asylum for, mentally unstable people. That's why there are belt straps and handcuffs all on the cabin beds.
What's the drill for then?
I think they had really violent patients." I realized she was right, but before I could ponder on this
Oh,
revelation
no.
for a few
No,
more
no,
seconds, my eyes
no.
went to the tip of the tool that I was holding in my hand. I said in a confused tone, "There's something on the tip of this drilling tool. Flash your light on it, Stella." As Stella flashed her light on the tool, we realized it was nothing but dried blood. Our hearts started to beat fast in fear. We inspected all the tools on the operation table and noticed almost all of them had dried blood spots. There was a freezer-type thing in the corner of that
Oh,
room.
shit.
Stella rushed towards it and opened the door. As she looked into the freezer, She started screaming at the top of her lungs.
Bitch, don't scream,
I ran
bitch.
towards her and soon came across the horror lying in front of her eyes. The freezer had various types of jars. The jars seemed really old and a reeking smell was coming out of them. In each jar, there was a human body part in it. Some had an ear, some nose, human tongue, fingers, brains,
Oh shit, it's Michael
and a
Jackson from the
human
Thriller
head.
video.
We couldn't believe our eyes. I took out the jar with a human head in it. Stella said, "I can't believe they used to treat the patients in such a gruesome manner."
Bitch,
It
what?
was a man's head with his eyes closed. The face was horrible to look at, but what happened next still gives me the creeps when I think
No, those
about
eyes
it.
better not open.
Stella and I were
swear to God, they
inspecting the
better not
human
open.
head with a close
No,
look when
don't
suddenly
open.
the slitted head opened its eyes and started staring back at us.
I legit asked
Out
it
of
not to
fear
do
and
that.
shock, we stepped back.
Hell
The
no.
head then started to smile from
Nope.
ear to ear.
No. Run,
Stella screamed
bitch.
as loud as she could, and we
Run,
started
ho.
to run for our life.
Run,
As I
ho.
looked back, I saw a group of black shadows
Hell
following
no.
us. They were whispering in their own demonic language. They
Run.
stretched their hands towards us and started to run.
Run,
I said in
bitch.
a panicked voice, "Run, Stella, run! They're coming to get
I
us!"
love you, bitch.
Stella and I stormed out of the asylum
I
and hopped
love you,
inside our car.
bitch.
We could hear the cry of hundreds
Bro, I'd
of
have
people
tripped that.
coming
I'd have
from
tripped
the
that
asylum.
bitch.
It was like people screaming in pain.
Nope.
As we started the car, the cries turned into maddening laughter.
No.
Without thinking much, I pushed the accelerator so hard that the car started making a screeching noise. I won't be able to explain if you ask me how we came back home. All I remember is that somehow we did, and which is why we are still alive.
Nigga,
Stella
you think?
later researched about that abandoned asylum. She talked to a few local people and collected some bizarre news on this matter. People said the asylum used to be a home for mentally disabled criminals, but the doctors running that place used to torture them and run many inhuman
Oh my
experiments.
God.
Local people are scared to go there, even in daylight. They believe numerous spirits of those tortured patients still haunt that place.
You think? Story number 5.
Have you ever felt like this is probably the time where you are going to die?
I've had
If
a lot
you
of
haven't,
those.
you are so damn lucky.
Oh man.
This incident happened last week. The trauma of this incident is so fresh that I am still having a rough time recovering from
You
it.
do meth?
I work in a pizza
That
shop.
nigga look like he do meth.
My job includes taking orders and delivering them to customers at night.
Five Nights at Freddy's
I've
pizza,
always worked
nigga.
a night shift and never faced any issues until now. Last week, I was standing near the counter when our shop's phone rang. I picked up and said, "Cheese man, can I take your order?" A man with a really grumpy and rough voice replied, "That's what I called, jackass." I felt a bit insulted by his behavior, but kept it to myself. The man ordered 2 large pizzas and gave an address of a house residing in the outskirts of the town. I told the chef to prepare the order. I checked the address using my GPS and realized it's going to be a 20-minute drive.
I'd have spit on
I
them
stacked the
pizzas.
boxes on the front seat of the car and started for the destination. I was driving amidst the small townships. It was 10 p.m. at night, so the streets were completely empty. The yellow streetlights created a spooky atmosphere all around. I saw a house at the end of the street and realized this is the location. I parked my car near the house and got out. The house looked quite abandoned to me, as if people hardly lived there, but I saw the lights in the room upstairs. I walked to the main door and knocked. I could hear a whispering sound coming out of the house. No one opened the door, so I knocked again. This time, I heard footsteps. It felt like someone is coming down the stairs and walking towards the main door. The door opened after a few seconds. An angry-looking man with a rough bearded face stood in the doorway. His eyes were slightly red and he was smelling of whiskey. The man said in a rough voice, "What do you want?"
Oh hell no.
Hearing his voice, I realized this is the same guy who insulted me on the phone. I said in a calm but firm voice, "Your pizza's here," and handed him the boxes. The man checked me out from head to toe and then paid me the money, saying, "You can go now,"
Oh
and
shit.
slammed the door hard on my face.
Damn nigga.
I thought to myself, what an asshole. This guy is surely fucking drunk with no sense of manners. I got back to the car and was just about to start the engine when a sound came to my ears. The sound was so mellow that it took me a bit of time to figure out what it was. As I tried to listen closely, I figured out it was a sobbing sound of a little girl.
Shit!
I looked around, but there wasn't anyone.
It's a
It
children's
was
sex
only me
dungeon.
inside my car
Damn
under a
it.
streetlight. I listened
Well,
for a few seconds more and realized
good luck, little
the
niggas.
crying sound was coming from the
Drove
house
off
where
on
I
them.
just delivered the pizzas.
I'm not about to
It would have been possible that the drunk asshole had a little daughter and it was a
I done almost gotten killed trying to captain save a hoe so many times that I've just stopped helping people, man. It just seems easier.
matter of their personal life. But there was something in the cry of this little girl that
Nope.
kept pleading me not to leave.
Nope.
I slowly came out of the car and tiptoed to the house.
No.
I get close to the main door and tried to listen to the sounds coming from the house. The little girl was continuously sobbing, but I heard two more sounds this time. I heard two men talking in a really low voice, but their talking mode was so rough that I could hear almost everything they were speaking. The grumpy drunk who opened the door was saying to another man, "I told you to tie her mouth tightly."
Oh,
The other man replied, "I did, but she won't stop sobbing. Not everything is my fault, Brute." I said to myself, "So this asshole's name is Brute?" Brute replied in an angry voice, "I shouldn't have made you a partner in the first place. Can't even keep a 10-year-old girl quiet, jackass." They get into an argument with each other and started to use really obscene language. The girl's cry got louder. There was a small window on the house porch. I slowly peeked inside from the window, and what I saw scared the hell out of me.
Yep.
A little girl was lying on a dusty mattress on the floor.
Damn.
Her hands and legs were tied. Her
Damn.
mouth has been taped too. Her wide eyes looked fucking terrified. I could tell from her expression that she was in danger. The
You
two
think?
men were sitting on the porch arguing. One was Brute the drunk guy, and the other was a bony, creeping-looking guy sitting right next to him. The entire scenario became crystal clear to me. I realized they are professional kidnappers and have abducted this little girl. This house is probably an abandoned house, which is why they chose this place to keep the girl. To be honest, I was really nervous at the beginning and thought to leave the place and inform the cops about it. I thought it would be better if the cops handled this matter. But then, I again looked at this little girl and realized how dangerous it would be if I just leave her here like this. Don't know what these two bastards will do to her, or what if they take her to some other place, or worse, kill her for ransom. With various thoughts going on in my head, I decided to take one step at a time, because there was no way I was leaving this little girl to die at the hands of these criminals.
Why not, man? She
I
be
made
alright.
no sound and got to my car. I got inside it and called 911.
Thank you.
I reported the entire situation very cautiously so that the kidnappers couldn't hear me. The nearest police station was about 20 minutes away from that area. They told me to keep my eyes open and they will be here as soon as they can. Even though I knew the cops were on their way, I couldn't just sit in the car and wait. I got out and started to walk towards the back side of the house. As I reached the back door, I saw those two men going upstairs. The little girl was lying on the ground like before. I said to myself, "Matthew, this is your only chance." Luckily, the back door of the house had a small entrance for dogs and cats.
No.
I put my hand through it and twisted the doorknob slowly. The door opened. I paused and listened carefully. Those men were still upstairs arguing. I tiptoed to the living room and reached towards the little girl. I turned her over and she started to panic at first. I shushed her by gesturing a finger on my lips and said in a whispering voice, "I am here to help you. The cops are on their way." She nodded her head. I stood up, started to untie her.
What? What are you doing?
She was sobbing like before. I understood this girl
Grab
is
this chick and
extremely
go, nigga.
traumatized
Don't
from what she's
untie her.
going through right now. Suddenly, I heard footsteps and I started to hurry up.
Run,
I was
bitch.
almost done when I heard a thunder-striking voice from the stairs. "Hey, who the hell are you? What are you doing, you bastard?" I looked back and saw Brute was standing on the stairs.
Stupid.
His face seemed like the hound from hell. He was breathing like a hungry wolf. I immediately took the little girl on my lap and started to run towards the door. Brute took out a huge knife and chased me.
Yeah.
I was just close to the exit when he stabbed me on my leg.
Ah,
I
shit.
screamed in pain because I knew he stabbed me deeply, but I didn't stop. The little girl started crying and screaming in fear, seeing blood coming out of my leg. I grabbed her tightly to my chest and ran as fast as I could. I got on the streets. I already said the streets were empty, and the next house was at 1 to 2 kilometers distance from this one. I knew I wouldn't make it that far because I turned around and saw those two criminals chasing me with sharp knives in their hands. I was just praying to God, please make the cops reach here before they get us.
Dumbass.
I could hear them saying, "Stop! I will kill you, you son of a bitch! Stop, right now!" My leg was about to give up, and I realized that I should have gotten into the car. But I don't know if I could have driven it safely or not.
Nigga.
While every hope of coming out of this alive with this little girl in my arms was dying in front of my eyes, I saw a flash of red and blue lights heading towards us. The cops' car's siren made me heave a sigh of relief. I turned back and saw Brute and that bony guy now running backward. I was sure that they have seen the cops and are trying to escape now. I stumbled on the ground and a lady cop came rushing towards me. As soon as she took the little girl from my arms, I lost my senses. I had to stay in the hospital for a week. The cops managed to reunite the girl with her parents and have arrested Brute and his partner. Doctors say I might have to limp while walking for the rest of my life. But when that little girl visited me in the hospital, her smile and the tears of joy on her parents' face made all my pain worth it.
Damn.
I am happy that I could save a little child's life on that night of pizza delivery.
That's wild.
This true incident of my life can be quite disturbing for many viewers. I myself am also ramsacked by the impact of this incident that I can barely sleep at night. I would like to keep my identity hidden, so for the sake of the story, you can call me Ted. Since childhood, I was different than other kids of my age. I still remember the first time I witnessed death. I was playing in our backyard when a pigeon broke its neck and fell in front of my monster truck. I don't know why a thrilling sensation grabbed me that day. Instead of calling for help, I crushed the suffering pigeon with my truck.
What the fuck?
The pigeon flopped its wings, and blood kept flowing from its smashed head.
What type of sick
As I grew up, this feeling of seeing blood flow grew too. I sometimes used to bite my own lips just to taste some drops of blood. I won't deny, I like the salty flavor of it, even more than any dessert. When I was 12 years old, my mother went to visit my grandmother, and I was home alone. Our neighbor next door came to cook some food for me. Miss Harrison made me some steaks that night. While chopping the meat, she accidentally cut her finger with our sharp kitchen knife. She went to the washroom to dress her wound and told me to wash the knife as it had drops of her blood. As soon as she disappeared from sight, I secretly licked the knife and tasted her blood. I won't lie, it felt amazing.
Ew, nigga.
Soon, I came to realize that I possess a very weird fantasy which, in other terms, can be compared to cannibalism. No matter how many types of meat I had my entire life, nothing beats the taste of human blood and flesh. With more days passing by, my weird fantasy started to make me anxious. I was looking for a way to make it come true by tasting actual human flesh. You must understand that I'm not a killer. My intention was never to hurt anyone on purpose, but I couldn't help myself with this hidden fantasy either. I was going through a troubled time then. My father died from a heart attack and our family fell apart. He was admitted to the hospital for a long time. On the day of his death, when my mom and grandparents were busy talking to the doctors and paying the medical bills, I sneaked into the hospital morgue. I saw fresh dead bodies lying there. It was probably lunchtime, so there was no stuff there. I was completely aware of the security cameras, so I chose a dead body laying in the corner of the morgue. I carefully got close to it without revealing my face to the camera.
Feet.
I used a small surgical knife that I stole from my high school lab. I cut a few pieces of flesh from the body and ate it. Even though the flesh was a bit stiff, it tasted like heaven. I finally realized I am a cannibal.
You are a fucking weirdo.
I finished high school and decided to study medical science so that I can remain close to dead bodies. My first year of college went by tasting dead people's meat. I used to cut out selective body parts from the cadavers kept in the lab of our medical school, then have them as my dinner. Things weren't great, but I was addicted to it. One day, I was sitting in my room and browsing through the dark web when I came across a site named Cannibal Cafe Forum. This cannibalistic forum is about eating people and being eaten by people. Here, people log in requests to get eaten or eat others, talk about their cannibalistic fantasies. For example, a note under the website read, "The Cannibal Cafe Forum is dedicated to covering a full range of cannibalistic fantasy. The topics here deal with fantasies involving consenting adults. The more I searched that site, the more my curiosity increased. Some people willingly wanted to be victims of cannibalism. I was shocked and extremely excited to find out about this site. I logged on and started to take part in chats on that forum. I had no friends, no girlfriend, and I hardly visited my family after moving out for college. I wanted to keep my life as private as possible to avoid any source of suspicion from anyone. Every day after coming back from college, my routine was to sit in front of my computer and explore the Cannibal Cafe forum. People posted ads on that forum expressing their desire to get eaten and tasted by others. For me, it was like my own custom shopping site. I thought everything through and decided to post an ad myself. As I said already, I am not a killer, so all I wanted was a volunteer to make my fantasy come true.
Nasty.
People used to talk about tasting human flesh, how to cut a human body in perfect pieces, what kind of recipes should be followed for a certain part of a body, and so on. I posted an ad that read, "Looking for a volunteering victim to assist for a few of my recipes. Interested candidates, mail me." Every night after coming home, I checked the page to see if someone has responded to my ad or not. A few weeks passed and nothing happened. I almost lost interest in this forum. I started to doubt the entire setup as a scam. A part of my mind kept telling me, none of this is actually real people. People who are claiming to be cannibals just like me are not at all criminals in real life. This is probably a hoax just to spook people about the dark web. I was on the verge of deleting my account and move on with my terrible secret when a reply popped up on my ad. It was a rainy Saturday night. I rented an apartment for myself. I used to work at a medical store on an internship basis to earn some cash. I had no social life as such, so my expenses were quite minimum in comparison to other college-going boys and girls. I came home completely drenched that night. I stormed into my room and opened my computer like every other day. I logged into the page and went to freshen up. While I took a shower in my bathroom, I kept hearing the sound of notifications coming from my computer. Within 5 to 7 minutes, I came back to my seat and saw 2 notifications. The first notification was a comment on my ad. I opened it up and saw a reply reading, "Hi, I am a 42-year-old woman. I would like to connect with you further. Please accept my chat request." The next notification was a request sent from a profile named Bloody Zoe. I knew this wasn't her actual name, but anyways, I accepted her request. Irrespective of her age, I was eager to talk to her because I wasn't looking for anything more than tasting actual flesh from a volunteering victim. As we started to chat, I kind of started to feel fascinated by her words. Zoe said that she too has a weird sensation towards the entire act of cannibalism. She was looking for an opportunity to be a part of this actual act, and that's when she found my ad. I asked her, many people have posted ads before me, so what made her interested in mine? To which she replied that she is new to the page and her fantasies are different from others. She wants me to cut her layers of skin slowly and taste her blood, but she doesn't want any gruesome violence or torture during the process. I knew then and there that she will be a perfect match. I told her that it will be great if she could meet me so we can take the matter forward. She says she will eventually, but before that, she will prefer if we talk for a few days to know each other well. I had no issues with that. We started to chat regularly on the forum. I even posted some of my recipes with the body parts of the cadavers I collected to fulfill my fantasy. With more days passing, Zoe and I became quite close, but we never shared any details regarding our personal life. We made a pact that after we are done tasting each other's blood one time, we will break all ties and move on to other possible candidates. So, after a wait of 2 months, the day finally arrived. We decided to meet at a completely unknown location. I didn't tell her my address, and she too did the same. We selected a random cafe to meet around 7 p.m. sharp. I hadn't seen her, neither had she seen me. It was going to be a weirdly fascinating experience for both of us. To resolve the issue of identification, I texted her, "How will you recognize me?" Zoe replied, "I will tie a red scarf around my hand, and you also do the same." On my way home from college, I bought a red scarf from the clothing store. I barely slept that night. I was all excited to meet this woman and make my fantasy come true. The cafe was at 20 minutes distance from my place. I got ready and took my car keys. I dropped a text on the chat box of Cannibal Cafe to notify Zoe that I am on my way. Zoe too replied back that she will get there in time, just how we discussed. I drove really fast that night and reached the cafe before time. I looked at the clock, it was 6:50 p.m. There were still 10 minutes left. I booked a table for the two of us and started to wait. I got up in the middle to go to the washroom. I took the scarf with me. While coming out of the washroom, I started to tie the scarf on my hand. Suddenly, my eyes went to the entrance. I saw a woman with a red scarf tied around her hand closing the cafe door after coming inside. Her back was facing me. I was sure that this is Zoe, with no doubt because there was no one else with a red scarf on their hand inside the cafe. I looked at my watch and it was 7 p.m. sharp. I was about to walk towards her when she finally turned towards me and my life shattered at that very moment. I was right about her name not being Zoe, because I know her name. And not just her name, I know her very well. The woman with whom I fantasized about fulfilling my cannibalistic urges on the dark web is none other than my very own mother.
Oh!
Yes, my mom was standing at the cafe door. Her eyes were transfixed on me.
Yo!
We were both standing like statues with red scarves tied to our hands. I couldn't believe all the things she told me these past 2 months. My mom, she is just like me, or I am just like her.
Nigga.
My head was banging. I had no clue what to do. My mom stood there numb, expressionless for a few seconds, then stormed out of the cafe like lightning. It has been 4 years now. I haven't seen her, haven't talked to her. My grandparents have no idea about this, I think. I don't even know where my mom is now. Last time, when Nana called me, she said mom took a job in the UK and left this country. She asked me what went wrong with her suddenly. I obviously couldn't answer. I don't know what to do. I have deleted my account from the Cannibal Cafe forum. I haven't visited the dark web since the incident. I am trying to be a vegan now, but seriously, will I be able to face my own mother ever in life?
There's gonna be part 1 of 21 true horror stories animated. Make sure to stay tuned for part 2, as I'm pretty sure it gets worse. Twisms.